If you're watching this video, chances are you or someone you love is struggling with depression. Every day you wait, the neural pathways of depression get stronger. But Jordan Peterson discovered that with the right approach, you can rewire your brain for happiness in weeks, not years. Dr. Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist and professor emeritus at the University of Toronto, has spent over 3 decades treating depression and anxiety disorders. What he discovered during his clinical practice and his own personal battle with severe depression revolutionizes everything we thought we knew about this devastating condition. You see, the medical establishment wants you to believe that depression is simply a chemical imbalance that requires lifelong medication. But Peterson's research reveals a much more complex and hopeful truth. Depression isn't just about low serotonin, it's about disrupted meaning, broken behavioral patterns, and neural pathways that have been conditioned for suffering. The good news: these patterns can be changed. Peterson has developed a comprehensive, science-based approach that addresses the root causes of depression, not just the symptoms. His methods have helped thousands of patients reclaim their lives, and they can help you too. But this isn't about positive thinking or quick fixes. This is about understanding the deep psychological and neurological mechanisms that create and maintain depression, and using proven scientific techniques to break free from this prison of the mind. Today, I'm going to share with you Peterson's most powerful strategies for overcoming depression. These aren't just theories, they're practical, evidence-based interventions that you can start implementing immediately. Are you ready to learn how to fight back against depression using the power of science? The neuroscience of depression, understanding your enemy. Before we dive into Peterson's solutions, you need to understand what depression actually does to your brain. This isn't just sadness or low mood, it's a systematic rewiring of your neural pathways that affects every aspect of your thinking, feeling, and behavior. Peterson's research, combined with advances in neuroscience, reveals that depression creates what he calls cognitive prisons, self-reinforcing patterns of thought and behavior that trap people in cycles of hopelessness and despair. When you're depressed, several critical changes occur in your brain. Prefrontal cortex dysfunction. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function, decision-making, and future planning, becomes less active. This makes it harder to think clearly, make decisions, and see possibilities for the future. Hyperactive amygdala. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, becomes overactive, constantly scanning for threats and dangers. This creates chronic anxiety and makes everything seem more frightening and overwhelming. Disrupted reward pathways. The dopamine system, which motivates you to pursue goals and experience pleasure, becomes dysregulated. This is why depressed people lose interest in activities they once enjoyed. Altered memory processing. The hippocampus, crucial for memory formation, becomes impaired. Depression literally changes how you remember your past, making negative memories more vivid and positive memories harder to access. Default mode network overactivity. When your brain isn't focused on specific tasks, it defaults to a network that includes rumination and self-criticism. In depression, this network becomes hyperactive, leading to endless loops of negative thinking. But here's what Peterson discovered that changes everything. These neural changes aren't permanent. The brain has what scientists call neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural pathways and modify existing ones throughout life. This means that depression, no matter how severe or long-lasting, can be overcome by systematically rewiring your brain using the right interventions. Peterson's approach targets each of these dysfunctional systems with specific, evidence-based techniques. Peterson's first law, clean up your physiology. Peterson discovered that before you can fix your psychology, you must fix your physiology. Depression isn't just a mental disorder, it's a whole body condition that affects your sleep, nutrition, exercise, and basic biological functions. Most people try to think their way out of depression, but Peterson's research shows that you must First, establish what he calls biological stability before psychological interventions can be effective. Sleep architecture restoration. Sleep disruption is both a symptom and a cause of depression. Peterson found that 90% of his depressed patients had severely disrupted sleep patterns, and fixing sleep was often the first breakthrough in treatment. Depression typically causes difficulty falling asleep due to rumination, frequent awakening during the night, early morning awakening with inability to return to sleep. Non-restorative sleep that leaves you exhausted, but poor sleep also makes depression worse by impairing prefrontal cortex function, increasing stress hormones like cortisol, disrupting neurotransmitter production, reducing emotional regulation capacity. A person's sleep protocol involves sleep hygiene fundamentals. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Your circadian rhythm needs consistency. To function properly. Light exposure management. Get bright light exposure within 30 minutes of waking up, preferably natural sunlight. Avoid screens for 2 hours before bedtime. Temperature regulation. Keep your bedroom cool 65–68 degrees Fahrenheit. Your body temperature naturally drops during sleep, and a cool environment facilitates this process. Stress reduction before bed. Practice relaxation. Techniques like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation to quiet the ruminating mind. Nutritional neuroscience. Peterson discovered that many cases of depression involve nutritional deficiencies that directly affect brain function. The standard American diet, high in processed foods and sugar, actually promotes depression through several mechanisms. Blood sugar stability. Rapid fluctuations in blood sugar create mood instability and energy crash that mimic and worsen depression. Symptoms. Peterson recommends eating protein with every meal and avoiding refined sugars. Omega-3 fatty acids. These essential fats are crucial for brain health and neurotransmitter production. Studies show that omega-3 supplementation can be as effective as antidepressants for mild to moderate depression. Micronutrient deficiencies. Deficiencies in B vitamins, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc are common in depression and can be addressed through targeted supplementation and dietary changes. Anti-inflammatory foods. Depression involves chronic inflammation in the brain. Foods like fatty fish, leafy greens, berries, and nuts have anti-inflammatory properties that support mental health. Exercise as brain medicine. Peterson calls exercise the most underutilized antidepressant because of its powerful effects on brain, chemistry, and structure. Exercise combats depression by increasing BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes new neural growth, releasing endorphins and other mood-enhancing neurotransmitters, reducing inflammation throughout the body and brain, improving sleep quality and stress resilience, providing a sense of accomplishment and self-efficacy. Exercise prescription is specific. 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, 5 days per week. This could be brisk walking, swimming, cycling, or any activity that elevates your heart rate. The key is consistency, not intensity. Even light exercise is better than no exercise, and the antidepressant effects begin within days of starting. A regular routine. Peterson's second law. Confront the chaos in your environment. Peterson discovered that external chaos creates internal chaos. People with depression often live in environments that reinforce their mental state. Cluttered spaces, disorganized schedules, broken relationships, and unresolved problems. He developed what he calls environmental psychology. The understanding that your surroundings profoundly affect your mental state and that changing your environment can catalyze psychological healing. The power of order. Peterson's famous advice to clean your room isn't just about tidiness, it's about creating external order as a foundation for internal order. Research from UCLA found that people living in cluttered environments have higher levels of cortisol throughout the day. Clutter creates a constant, low-level stress that depletes your mental resources and makes depression worse. But cleaning and organizing your space does more than reduce stress. Sense of control. When you organize your environment, you experience a sense of control and competence that directly counters the helplessness characteristic of depression. Visual clarity. A clean, organized space provides visual calm that allows your mind to relax and think more clearly. Accomplishment momentum. Successfully organizing your space provides immediate, tangible evidence of your ability to create positive change. Self-respect. Taking care of your environment is a form of self-care that reinforces your worth and dignity. Peterson recommends starting small. Clean one drawer, organize one shelf, make your bed every morning. These small acts of order create psychological momentum that can expand to larger areas of your life. Relationship ecology. Depression often involves toxic or draining relationships that reinforce negative patterns. Peterson discovered that many depressed people are surrounded by what he calls psychological vampires, people who drain their energy and reinforce their worst tendencies. Identify energy drainers. Notice which relationships leave you feeling exhausted, criticized, or hopeless. These relationships may need to be limited or ended entirely. Seek growth-oriented connections. Actively seek relationships with people who encourage your growth, support your healing, and model healthy behaviors. Set boundaries. Learn to say no to requests and demands that deplete your limited energy reserves. Your mental health must be a priority. Communicate your needs. Let trusted friends and family know how they can support your recovery. Most people want to help but don't know how. Problem-solving. Depression often involves an accumulation of unresolved problems that create a sense of overwhelm and helplessness. Peterson developed a systematic approach to breaking down these problems into manageable pieces. Problem inventory. Write down all the problems, large and small, that are weighing on your mind. Categorization. Separate problems into those you can control and those you cannot control. Focus your energy only on controllable problems. Prioritization. Rank problems by their impact on your life and their solvability. Start with high-impact, easily solvable problems. Action planning. Break each problem into specific, concrete steps that you can take immediately. Momentum building. Solve smaller problems first to build confidence and energy for tackling larger challenges. Peterson's third law. Restructure your meaning system. Peterson discovered that depression often involves what he calls meaning collapse, the breakdown of the belief systems, values, and purposes that previously gave life direction and significance without meaning. People experience what Viktor Frankl called existential vacuum, a profound emptiness that no amount of pleasure or success can fill. Peterson's research shows that rebuilding meaning is essential for lasting recovery from depression. The hierarchy of values. Most people have never consciously examined their values and priorities. They drift through life pursuing goals chosen by others, our parents, society, peers, without considering whether these goals align with their authentic nature. Depression often occurs when there's a mismatch between your true values and your actual life. You might be successful by external standards, but feel empty because you're not living according to your deepest convictions. Peterson's values clarification process involves values identification. Identify your core values through reflection and assessment. What principles are you unwilling to compromise? What causes are you willing to sacrifice for? Life audit. Examine how your current life aligns with these values. Where are the biggest gaps between your values and your actions? Priority restructuring. Reorganize your life to better reflect your authentic values, even if this requires difficult changes. Daily alignment. Ensure that your daily actions and decisions reflect your values. Small, consistent choices align with your values create profound psychological satisfaction. Purpose beyond self. Peterson discovered that depression often involves excessive self-focus. When people become obsessed with their own problems, emotions, and needs, they lose connection to larger purposes that provide meaning and motivation. Research consistently shows that people who are engaged in causes larger than themselves experience greater life satisfaction and resilience. Peterson calls this transcendent purpose, commitment to something beyond immediate self-interest. Service to others. Find ways to contribute to other people's well-being. This could be through work, volunteering, mentoring, or simply being a supportive friend or family member. Creative expression. Engage in activities that allow you to create something of value. Art, writing, building, problem solving, or innovation. Legacy. Building. Consider what you want to leave behind when you're gone. How do you want to be remembered? What impact do you want to have on the world? Skill development. Commit to becoming excellent at something meaningful. Mastery provides deep satisfaction and connects you to communities of practice. The responsibility. One of Peterson's most controversial insights is that depression often involves insufficient responsibility rather than too much stress. People who feel useless and insignificant often crave more responsibility, not less. When you take responsibility for important outcomes, other people's well-being, important projects, significant goals, you activate psychological systems that were designed for meaning and purpose. Gradual responsibility increase. Start by taking full responsibility for small but important areas of your life. As you prove your competence, gradually expand your sphere of responsibility. Care for others. Taking care of another living being, a pet, plant, or person who depends on you, provides immediate meaning and purpose. Leadership opportunities. Look for opportunities to lead, teach, or guide others, even in small ways. Leadership roles force you to think beyond your own problems. Problem ownership. Instead of waiting for others to solve problems you care about, take ownership of finding solutions yourself. Peterson's fourth law. Master your internal dialogue. Peterson discovered that depression involves what cognitive scientists call cognitive distortions, systematic errors in thinking that maintain and worsen depressive symptoms. These thought patterns become so automatic that people don't realize they're thinking in ways that guarantee misery. His approach combines cognitive behavioral therapy with insights from evolutionary psychology and neuroscience to help people restructure their internal dialogue. The depression thinking patterns. Peterson identified several thinking patterns that characterize depression: all or nothing thinking, seeing situations in black and white terms with no middle ground. I'm a complete failure instead of I made a mistake. Mental filtering, focusing exclusively on negative aspects while ignoring positive elements. Dwelling on criticism while dismissing praise. Catastrophizing, imagining the worst possible outcomes and treating them as likely or inevitable. This setback means I'll never succeed. Mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking, usually negative thoughts about you. Everyone thinks I'm pathetic. Fortune telling, predicting negative futures without evidence. I'll never be happy or things will never get better. Emotional reasoning, believing that your emotions reflect reality. I feel worthless, therefore I am worthless. Personalization, taking responsibility for things outside your control while ignoring your actual areas of responsibility. Cognitive restructuring techniques develop specific techniques for identifying and changing these destructive thought patterns. Thought monitoring, keep a daily log of negative thoughts, noting the situations that trigger them and the emotions they create. Evidence examination, when you notice a negative thought, ask, what evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? What would I tell a friend who had this thought? Alternative perspectives. For each negative interpretation, generate at least 3 alternative explanations for the same situation. Probability assessment. When catastrophizing, estimate the actual probability of your feared outcome occurring. Most feared outcomes are far less likely than we imagine. Worst-case planning. For legitimate concerns, develop concrete plans for handling worst-case scenarios. This reduces anxiety and increases confidence. Best-case visualization. Balance worst-case thinking by also imagining positive outcomes and planning how to create them. The narrative therapy approach. Peterson discovered that people with depression often have coherent but destructive stories about themselves, their past, and their future. These narratives become self-fulfilling prophecies that maintain depression. Story identification. What story do you tell yourself about your life? Are you the victim, the failure, the unlucky one, the damaged person? Story questioning. Challenge the accuracy and completeness of your personal narrative. What evidence contradicts your story? What positive aspects are you leaving out? Story rewriting. Consciously develop a more balanced and empowering narrative about your life. You're not ignoring problems, but you're including your strengths, growth, and possibilities. Future authoring. Write detailed descriptions of the life you want to create. This exercises your brain's planning and motivation systems while providing direction for recovery. Peterson's fifth law. Build antifragile psychological systems. Peterson discovered that traditional approaches to mental health focus on reducing symptoms rather than building resilience. But true recovery from depression requires what Nassim Taleb calls antifragility, the ability to not just survive stress, but to grow stronger from it. Controlled stress exposure. Just as physical exercise involves controlled stress that makes muscle stronger, psychological exercise involves controlled challenges that build mental resilience. Graduated exposure. Systematically expose yourself to situations you've been avoiding due to anxiety or depression. Start with mildly challenging situations and gradually increase difficulty. Comfort zone expansion. Regularly do things that push you slightly outside your comfort zone. This could be social activities, physical challenges, creative projects, or learning new skills. Failure practice. Deliberately engage in activities where failure is possible and likely. This builds tolerance for disappointment and reduces the fear of failure that often underlies depression. Rejection therapy. Practice making requests that might be rejected. This desensitizes you to social rejection and builds confidence in your ability to handle disappointment. Emotional regulation skills. Depression often involves emotional dysregulation, the inability to manage intense emotions effectively. Peterson developed specific techniques for building emotional resilience. Mindfulness meditation. Practice observing your thoughts and emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This creates psychological distance and reduces reactivity. Breathing techniques. Learn specific breathing patterns that activate the parasympathetic nervous system and reduce stress responses. Progressive muscle relaxation. Practice systematically tensing and relaxing muscle groups to reduce physical tension and promote relaxation. Cognitive diffusion. Learn to see thoughts as mental events rather than absolute truths. Techniques like "I'm having the thought that ... double quotes create healthy distance from negative thinking. Social support networks. Peterson discovered that recovery from depression requires what he calls therapeutic relationships, connections with people who support your growth and healing. Professional support. Consider working with a qualified therapist who understands evidence-based treatments for depression. Peer support. Connect with others who have overcome similar challenges. Support groups, online communities, or formal peer support programs can provide hope and practical guidance. Mentorship. Find mentors who embody the qualities and achievements you aspire to develop. Learning from their experience accelerates your own growth. Service relationships. Engage in relationships where you're helping others, teaching, mentoring, or supporting others in their growth provides meaning and perspective. Peterson's sixth law. Create winning momentum. Peterson discovered that depression creates negative momentum. Each day of inactivity and hopelessness makes the next day harder. But this process can be reversed by systematically creating positive momentum through small, consistent wins. The compound effect of small actions. Most people with depression feel overwhelmed by the gap between their current state and where they want to be. They think they need massive changes to feel better, which leads to paralysis and inaction. But Peterson's research shows that small, consistent actions compound over time to create dramatic changes. The key is choosing actions that are small, enough to complete even when depressed, but meaningful enough to create psychological momentum. Micro-habits: establish daily habits that take less than 5 minutes but move you in a positive direction. This could be making your bed, taking a short walk, writing in a gratitude journal, or practicing deep breathing. Sequential success: design your day so that you experience multiple small successes. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, builds confidence and energy for the next task. Progress tracking: keep visible records of your progress. This could be a simple checklist, a habit tracking app, or a journal where you note daily accomplishments. Celebration rituals: acknowledge and celebrate small wins. Your brain needs positive reinforcement to maintain motivation and build new neural pathways. Energy management: depression typically involves severely depleted energy levels. Peterson developed strategies for managing and gradually rebuilding your energy reserves. Energy auditing: track your energy levels throughout the day and identify activities that energize versus drain you. Peak time optimization: schedule your most important or challenging tasks during your highest energy periods. Energy investment: invest limited energy in activities that will increase your future energy. Exercise, good nutrition, meaningful relationships, skill building. Energy protection: eliminate or minimize energy draining activities, toxic relationships, mindless scrolling, excessive news consumption, time wasting activities. Goal architecture: most people with depression either have no goals or have goals that are too large and distant to provide motivation. Peterson developed a goal-setting framework specifically for depression recovery. Micro goals: set goals so small that you can accomplish them even on your worst days. Take a 5-minute walk instead of get in shape. Process goals: focus on consistent actions rather than outcomes. Write for 10 minutes daily instead of write a novel. Immediate goals: set goals you can accomplish today or this week, not months in the future. Meaningful goals: ensure your goals connect to your values and larger purpose, not just symptom reduction. Flexible goals: build in flexibility to adjust goals based on your current capacity while maintaining momentum. Peterson's 7th law. Develop existential courage. Peterson's final principle for overcoming depression involves what he calls existential courage, the willingness to face life's fundamental challenges and uncertainties without retreating into despair or avoidance. Depression often involves a form of existential crisis, questioning whether life has meaning, whether suffering is worthwhile, whether the future holds any hope. These are profound philosophical questions that require courage to confront. Accepting life's fundamental structure. Peterson argues that much depression comes from resistance to life's basic structure. Life involves suffering, uncertainty, loss, and death. When people expect life to be consistently pleasant and secure, they become depressed when reality doesn't match their expectations. Suffering acceptance: recognize that suffering is an inevitable part of life, not a sign that something is wrong with you or your life. Uncertainty tolerance: build your capacity to function effectively despite not knowing what the future holds. Loss integration: develop healthy ways to process and integrate losses rather than avoiding grief and disappointment. Mortality awareness: paradoxically, accepting your mortality can reduce depression by clarifying what's truly important and worth pursuing. Choosing your suffering: one of Peterson's most powerful insights is that you cannot avoid suffering, but you can choose what you suffer for. Depression often involves meaningless suffering, pain that serves no purpose and leads to no growth. Meaningful suffering: choose to suffer for goals, values, and people that matter to you rather than suffering passively from circumstances. Growth suffering: embrace the discomfort that comes with learning, growing, and challenging yourself rather than the stagnation of comfort. Service suffering: accept the challenges that come with helping others and contributing to causes larger than yourself. Creative suffering: embrace the difficulty of creating something valuable rather than the emptiness of consuming meaningless entertainment. Building philosophical resilience, Peterson discovered that lasting recovery from depression often requires developing a coherent philosophy of life that can withstand challenges and setbacks. Meaning framework: develop clear beliefs about what makes life worth living, what values are worth pursuing, and what legacy you want to leave. Purpose clarity: identify specific ways you can contribute to the world that align with your abilities and interests. Resilience philosophy: develop beliefs about adversity that help you grow from challenges rather than being defeated by them. Hope cultivation: maintain realistic optimism about your ability to create positive change in your life and the world. The integration protocol: putting it all together, Peterson's approach to overcoming depression isn't about implementing all these strategies at once. Recovery requires a systematic, gradual approach that builds on previous successes. Phase 1, biological stabilization, weeks 1 to 4 focus entirely on sleep, nutrition, exercise, and environmental order. Don't worry about psychological work until your biology is stabilized. Phase 2, behavioral activation, weeks 5 to 8 add meaningful activities, social connections, and problem solving to your routine. Start building positive momentum through small, consistent actions. Phase 3, cognitive restructuring, weeks 9 to 12 begin working on thought patterns, internal dialogue, and belief systems. Your improved biology and behavior will make this psychological work more effective. Phase 4, meaning reconstruction, weeks 13 to 16 focus on values clarification, purpose development, and existential questions. Build a framework for long-term resilience and fulfillment. Phase 5, antifragile integration, weeks 17 plus develop systems for ongoing growth, challenge tolerance, and contribution to others. Move from recovery to thriving. Conclusion: the choice to heal depression is not a life sentence. Peterson's research proves that with the right approach, even severe depression can be overcome using evidence-based psychological and behavioral interventions. But recovery requires more than just understanding these principles. It requires the courage to implement them consistently, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. The beautiful paradox Peterson discovered is that you don't need to feel motivated to take action. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Every small step you take toward recovery makes the next step easier. Your brain is plastic. Your patterns can change. Your future is not determined by your past. But healing requires you to take responsibility for your recovery and commit to the daily work of rebuilding your life. Peterson's methods have helped thousands of people overcome depression and create lives of meaning and fulfillment. They can work for you too, but only if you have the courage to begin. The choice is yours. Will you remain trapped in the prison of depression, or will you use these scientific tools to break free and build the life you deserve? Your future self is waiting. What will you choose?